The night air in Los Angeles was thick with humidity, the kind that clung to your skin and whispered of summer's lingering warmth. Sandra Bullock had just wrapped up another long day on set, her mind swirling with lines and lighting cues as she pulled into a dimly lit gas station. It was supposed to be a quick stop, a moment to recharge before heading home. As she stepped out of her car, the familiar scent of gasoline mingled with the distant sound of tires on pavement. The station was almost deserted, save for a few flickering lights and a solitary attendant who seemed lost in his phone. Everything felt quiet and safe until the rumble of motorcycles shattered the calm. A group of bikers roared into the station, their laughter ringing out like a challenge. Dressed in leather jackets with colorful patches, they looked like a scene from an action movie, and Sandra felt a rush of unease. She was used to being in the spotlight, but this was different. This felt invasive. "Hey, look who it is," one of the bikers shouted, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. "It's Sandra Bullock. Think she'll sign my jacket?" The air turned thick with tension as the group's attention zeroed in on her. Laughter turned to shouts, their comments growing louder and more suggestive. Sandra's heart raced as she tried to focus on filling up her gas tank, hoping to drown out their jeers. "Come on, Sandy. We just want a picture," another biker called, stepping closer. His friends laughed, their eyes gleaming with mischief. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach. What do I do? The thought of confronting them sent shivers down her spine. Instead, she chose to ignore them, turning back to the pump as if it held all the answers. The gas station attendant glanced her way, concern flickering across his face. Sandra met his gaze, silently pleading for help. He hesitated, clearly torn between wanting to assist and the fear of provoking the group. "Hey, can't you just leave her alone?" he finally called out, his voice shaky. The bikers turned their attention to him, sneering. "What's the matter, kid? She's just a celebrity. Lighten up." Sandra's heart raced. She finished pumping gas, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the nozzle. They were blocking her path to the car now, laughter echoing around her like a swarm of bees. "Come on, just a quick selfie, and we'll let you go," one of the bikers shouted, stepping forward with a grin. The mockery hung in the air, and Sandra's anxiety mounted. What if they don't let me leave? Just as her panic threatened to overwhelm her, she caught sight of a figure dismounting a motorcycle nearby. Her breath hitched as she recognized the unmistakable silhouette of Keanu Reeves, casually strolling toward the commotion. Unbeknownst to the bikers, the very presence they dismissed was about to turn the tide. Keanu's calm demeanor cut through the tension, and for a moment, Sandra felt a flicker of hope. "Hey! Is there a problem here?" Keanu's voice was steady, his eyes locked onto the bikers with a mix of curiosity and authority. The atmosphere shifted instantly, as the laughter faded into awkward silence. Sandra couldn't believe it. In a heartbeat, the dynamics of the situation had changed. She felt a rush of relief wash over her, the tension in her chest loosening just a bit as she realized she wasn't alone anymore. As the bikers exchanged uncertain glances, Sandra stood tall, grateful for this unexpected ally. The night was about to take a turn, and she sensed that everything was about to change. The atmosphere around the gas station crackled with a mix of confusion and tension. Keanu Reeves had stepped into the fray, and the bikers seemed to hesitate, caught off guard by the sudden intervention. Sandra felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was quickly tempered by the uncertainty of what would happen next. "Who the hell are you?" one of the bikers finally growled, attempting to regain control of the situation. His bravado was undercut by a hint of nervousness, his eyes darting between Keanu and his friends. "I'm just a guy who thinks it's not cool to bother someone who clearly wants to be left alone," Keanu replied, his voice steady and calm. He held his ground, and for a moment, it felt as though time stood still. Sandra watched as the bikers shifted uneasily, their laughter fading into a tense silence. She could feel their hostility simmering just beneath the surface, and she knew that the situation could escalate at any moment. "Come on, man, we're just having some fun," another biker chimed in, trying to regain some semblance of bravado. "It's not a big deal." But Keanu wasn't having any of it. "Fun shouldn't come at someone else's expense," he shot back, his gaze unwavering. There was a quiet intensity about him that seemed to deflate the biker's bravado further. Sandra's heart raced as she contemplated the gravity of the situation. Here was Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, standing up for her. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was the one used to being in the limelight, yet tonight she felt like a damsel in distress. The lead biker, still trying to assert his dominance, stepped closer, a threatening glint in his eye. "You think you can just come in here and play hero? This is our territory, man." Keanu took a step forward, matching the biker's intensity. "And I'm saying you need to back off. There's no need for this. Just let her go." Sandra's pulse quickened as she sensed the potential for violence hanging in the air. She couldn't help but think of the stories she'd heard about confrontations like this, how quickly they could spiral out of control. Her mind raced with options, none of them ideal. "Hey, look, it's not worth it," Sandra finally interjected, her voice steadier than she felt. She stepped closer to Keanu, finding strength in his presence. "I just want to go home." The bikers exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. The atmosphere shifted again, and for a brief moment, Sandra saw a flicker of hesitation in their eyes. It was a small victory, but it gave her hope. But just as she thought they might back down, the lead biker scoffed, trying to reclaim his power. "You're just scared, aren't you? Celebrities can't handle a little fun." Keanu's eyes narrowed, a flash of anger cutting through his calm demeanor. "It's not about being scared, it's about respect. You're crossing a line." The tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Sandra held her breath, praying the confrontation wouldn't escalate. She could feel the energy shifting again, the bikers' bravado waning but still holding on to their pride. "Whatever, man," the lead biker finally said, his tone dripping with disdain. "You think you can take us on? You're just some pretty boy in a movie." The other bikers snickered, trying to regain their bravado. But Keanu stood firm, unfazed by their taunts. He exuded a quiet confidence that resonated with Sandra, and she could see the bikers starting to falter. As the standoff continued, Sandra felt a surge of determination. She wasn't going to let these men intimidate her any longer. "You don't get to decide what's fun for me," she said, her voice gaining strength. "Harassing someone isn't fun. It's just wrong." The bikers exchanged unsure glances, the laughter and jeers starting to fade. It was a pivotal moment, and Sandra could feel it. The presence of Keanu, combined with her own refusal to back down, was slowly changing the dynamics. In that charged moment, the tension reached a breaking point. The lead biker scoffed and took a step back, visibly deflated. "Whatever, we're out of here," he muttered, waving his friends off. As they mounted their bikes, Sandra let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The weight of the situation lifted slightly, and she felt a mix of relief and gratitude toward Keanu. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I didn't know what I was going to do." Keanu turned to her, his expression softening. "You handled yourself well. You didn't let them push you around." Sandra felt a warmth spread through her. "I just didn't expect to be in that situation. It's a little surreal." He smiled, the tension between them easing. "Sometimes, it takes a moment like that to remind us we're not alone, even in the most unexpected places." As the bikers roared off into the night, Sandra couldn't shake the feeling that she'd crossed an invisible threshold. She was more than just a celebrity, she was a person with a voice. And in that moment, standing next to Keanu Reeves, she felt a renewed sense of empowerment. The roar of the bikers' engines faded into the distance, leaving a charged silence in the gas station. Sandra Bullock stood beside Keanu Reeves, her heart still racing from the confrontation. The adrenaline that had surged moments earlier began to ebb, replaced by a sense of gratitude that washed over her. "Are you okay?" Keanu asked, his voice low and steady, cutting through the remnants of tension in the air. Sandra nodded, though the tremor in her hands betrayed her. "I am now. I didn't expect my night to turn into a scene from a movie," she said, trying to inject some humor into the moment. Keanu chuckled lightly, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Life often feels like a film, doesn't it? Just with less script and more unpredictability." His words brought a small smile to her lips. Here was a man who had played countless heroes on screen, yet he seemed so grounded in reality. "I appreciate you stepping in like that. I honestly didn't know how it would end." He shrugged casually, his demeanor relaxed despite the earlier chaos. "We all have our moments. Sometimes, it takes a little push to stand up for ourselves." Sandra felt a spark of inspiration from his words. "You're right. I guess I'm used to being in control of my environment. It's strange to feel so vulnerable." Keanu nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Vulnerability isn't a weakness, it's part of being human. We all have our moments when we feel exposed. What matters is how we respond." Just then, the gas station attendant approached, a mix of relief and concern etched on his face. "I'm really sorry about that. I should have done more to help," he said, glancing between Sandra and Keanu. "Don't worry about it," Sandra replied, her voice softer now. "You can't always predict when trouble will show up. I appreciate you looking out for me." The attendant gave a small nod, but the relief on his face was evident. "I'm glad it didn't escalate further. It's not the first time I've seen trouble here, but it's usually just rowdy customers." Keanu raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "Have you ever had to call the police?" "Once or twice, but it's mostly been harmless," the attendant said. "Still, it's unsettling. I wish people would just respect each other, you know?" "Absolutely," Keanu replied, turning back to Sandra. "This world could use a little more respect and kindness." Sandra couldn't help but feel a bond forming, both with Keanu and the attendant. In that moment, the gas station felt less like a random stop and more like a sanctuary. It was a space where a shared experience had brought them together, even amid chaos. "Do you want to grab a coffee or something?" Keanu suggested, glancing at Sandra. "I think we both deserve a little unwinding after that." Her heart fluttered at the invitation. "That sounds great. I could use a moment to breathe and process everything." The attendant smiled at the suggestion. "There's a diner just a few blocks away that's open all night. Great coffee, too." "Lead the way," Keanu said, and with that, they walked toward the exit, the earlier tension replaced by a sense of camaraderie. As they stepped outside, Sandra couldn't help but feel a bit of a thrill. Here she was, walking side by side with Keanu Reeves, the man who had captured hearts in countless films. But more than that, he was a person who had just shown her a different side of strength. Inside the diner, the familiar smell of coffee and pancakes wafted through the air. They settled into a cozy booth, the atmosphere warm and inviting. Sandra took a moment to soak it all in, feeling like she had stepped into a different reality. "So, what's next for you?" Keanu asked, pouring 2 cups of coffee. "After all this excitement, I mean." She chuckled, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "Well, I was planning to crash on the couch with a good book, but I think I'll remember this night for a long time." Keanu leaned back, a mischievous glint in his eye. "I hope I make the cut in your memoirs." "Absolutely. The night Keanu Reeves saved me at a gas station has a nice ring to it," she teased, and they both laughed. The conversation flowed easily, moving from light-hearted banter to deeper discussions about life in the public eye. They shared stories of the challenges they faced, both as public figures and as individuals navigating the complexities of fame. "I've learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do is be vulnerable and open up," Keanu said, his tone thoughtful. "It's scary, but it's also freeing." Sandra nodded, feeling a connection grow between them. "I've been realizing that more and more. Tonight was a reminder that I don't have to face everything alone." The night continued to unfold, and as they shared laughs and stories over coffee, Sandra felt a sense of camaraderie blossoming. She had gone from feeling harassed and vulnerable to sharing an intimate moment with someone she admired. It was a twist she hadn't seen coming. As they finished their drinks, Sandra looked at Keanu, gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you for being my unexpected ally tonight. It made all the difference." Keanu smiled, his sincerity evident. "We all need allies sometimes. You've got a strength in you that shines through, Sandra. Never forget that." The night had transformed in ways she never expected. What began as a frightening encounter had turned into a shared experience that left her feeling empowered. With Keanu's encouragement and support, she knew she could face whatever came next. As the sun began to rise over Los Angeles, casting a warm glow through the diner's windows, Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves finished their coffee, the remnants of the previous night's chaos still fresh in their minds. They stepped outside into the crisp morning air, the world awakening around them. The unexpected bond forged in the gas station felt surreal, yet comforting. "So, what's your plan for the rest of the day?" Keanu asked, adjusting his leather jacket against the chill. "I was thinking of heading home and catching up on some sleep," Sandra replied, stifling a yawn. "But after everything, I might need a little more caffeine first." He chuckled, his eyes sparkling with warmth. "Let's find another coffee spot. We can chat more. I'd love to hear about your latest project." As they walked down the street, Sandra felt a sense of normalcy settling in. This was just a casual outing, right? But with Keanu beside her, it felt like something more, a connection that transcended their celebrity status. Suddenly, the roar of motorcycles broke through the calm. Sandra's stomach dropped as she turned to see the same group of bikers from the gas station approaching, their faces twisted in a mix of anger and bravado. "Look who we have here," the lead biker shouted, his voice cutting through the early morning air. "The movie star and her little boyfriend." Keanu's demeanor shifted, a protective instinct kicking in as he stepped slightly in front of Sandra. "You should really back off," he said, his voice steady but firm. The bikers dismounted, circling them like wolves sizing up their prey. "What's wrong? Didn't like our fun last night?" one of them taunted, his eyes narrowing. Sandra's heart raced as she glanced at Keanu, who remained calm and collected, the tension in his body evident but controlled. "This isn't necessary," he said, keeping his tone even. "You're making a mistake." The lead biker stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "You think you can just show up and play the hero? You have no idea who you're messing with." "I know enough to see when someone is crossing a line," Keanu replied, his gaze unwavering. "You're better than this." The words hung in the air, an unexpected plea that caught the bikers off guard. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across their faces, but the lead biker quickly regained his composure. "You think you can talk to us like that? We don't need a pretty boy to tell us what to do." Sandra felt a rush of fear as the situation escalated. She glanced around for help, but the street was still quiet, the early hour leaving them isolated. "Maybe we should just walk away," she suggested, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Not happening," the lead biker sneered, stepping closer to Keanu, who stood his ground. "You're not going to scare us off." With a sudden move, one of the bikers reached for Keanu's jacket, but Keanu deftly sidestepped, his reflexes sharp and fluid. "I'm not here to fight," he said, his voice low. "But I won't let you intimidate her." Sandra watched in awe as Keanu remained calm, the tension between them palpable. She knew this could turn dangerous, but something inside her sparked a sense of bravery. "You don't have to do this," she said, stepping forward. "This isn't who you are. Just walk away." The lead biker hesitated, looking between Sandra and Keanu. "You don't get to tell us what to do, lady," he snapped, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Keanu seized the moment. "You're better than this. This isn't about pride, it's about respect. Think about what you're really doing." The bikers exchanged glances, the tension thickening. It was a standoff that felt like it could break at any moment. Sandra could sense the shift, the internal struggle brewing among them. "Maybe you're right," one of the younger bikers finally said, his voice uncertain. "But we don't back down easily." Sandra felt a surge of hope. "You don't have to back down to walk away. Everyone deserves to feel safe, even here." The lead biker scoffed, but Sandra could see the fight starting to leave him. "You think you can talk us out of this? It's not that simple." "Maybe it doesn't have to be complicated," Keanu interjected, his voice firm but calm. "You have the choice to walk away with dignity instead of shame." The moment stretched, a palpable tension in the air as the bikers grappled with their pride and the truth of Keanu's words. Finally, the lead biker exhaled sharply, frustration evident on his face. "You're lucky this time," he spat, stepping back. "Next time, we won't be so nice," one of the other bikers added, but even his tone was less aggressive. As they mounted their bikes, Sandra felt a mixture of relief and lingering tension. The bikers roared off, leaving her and Keanu standing in the aftermath of the confrontation. "Are you okay?" Keanu asked, turning to her, concern etched on his face. "I think so," Sandra replied, her heart still pounding. "I didn't expect them to come back like that." "Neither did I," he admitted, his gaze serious. "But you handled it well. You stood up for yourself, and that takes courage." Sandra smiled, her admiration for him deepening. "I couldn't have done it without you. You're more than just a hero on screen." They both stood in the early morning light, feeling a sense of accomplishment amidst the chaos. The confrontation had tested their resolve, but it had also solidified their bond. They were allies in a world that often felt unpredictable, and together they had faced the challenge head-on. "I think we both need that coffee now," Keanu suggested with a grin, breaking the tension in the air. "What do you say?" "Absolutely," she replied, feeling a sense of warmth blossom within her. "Let's find a place where we can finally relax." As they walked down the street, side by side, Sandra felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they had faced a challenge and emerged stronger. The unpredictability of life had brought them together, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The sun climbed higher in the sky as Sandra and Keanu walked through the streets of Los Angeles, the earlier chaos slowly fading into the background. They soon found a charming cafe with an inviting outdoor patio, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. "Looks promising," Keanu said, gesturing toward a cozy table under a large umbrella. They settled in, the atmosphere relaxed and vibrant, a stark contrast to the tension of the morning. As they perused the menu, Sandra couldn't help but feel a sense of normalcy returning. It was refreshing to sit across from someone who had shown such genuine concern for her well-being. "So, what's your go-to coffee order?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation toward lighter territory. "I'm a classic black coffee guy. I like to keep it simple," he replied, his smile easy. "And you?" "I love a good latte. Something about the creaminess just makes everything feel right," she said, a playful grin spreading across her face. "Though I might need an extra shot after today." Keanu chuckled, and as they placed their orders, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They talked about their favorite movies, shared laughs over awkward audition stories, and swapped tales of unexpected moments in the industry. It felt liberating to connect on a human level, beyond the glitz and glam. As their coffees arrived, Sandra took a sip and sighed contentedly. "This is exactly what I needed," she said, savoring the warmth of the cup in her hands. Keanu watched her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "It's nice to see you relaxed. You're more than just a star, you're a real person with real feelings. I think that gets lost sometimes in the industry." His words resonated deeply with her. It does. People often forget that we're just trying to navigate life like everyone else. I've had my share of ups and downs, just like anyone else. "Tell me about it," Keanu encouraged, leaning in slightly. "What's been the most challenging part for you?" Sandra hesitated for a moment, reflecting on her journey. Honestly, the pressure to maintain a perfect image can be overwhelming. It's like there's always a spotlight on you, and one wrong move can lead to a media frenzy. Keanu nodded, understanding evident in his eyes. "I can relate. I've had my fair share of scrutiny. It's easy to feel isolated when you're constantly under a microscope." She appreciated his willingness to share. "What do you do to cope?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I try to find moments of solitude," he said, his voice calm. "I enjoy riding my motorcycle and being out in nature. It gives me a sense of freedom and clarity. Sometimes, you just need to disconnect from everything." Sandra smiled, feeling a connection deepen. "I love that. I used to find peace in writing. It's like therapy for me, a way to process my thoughts. Have you thought about getting back to it?" Keanu asked, a spark of interest in his eyes. "Yeah, I've been meaning to. I think I'll take that leap after tonight," she admitted, feeling inspired by their conversation. Their conversation continued, delving into dreams and aspirations, each sharing snippets of their lives that felt raw and authentic. Sandra found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected, discussing her passion for acting, her love for storytelling, and the importance of genuine connection. "And what about love?" Keanu asked, a teasing smile on his lips. "Does Sandra Bullock have a secret romance we don't know about?" She laughed, the sound light and genuine. "If only. But I think I've been too focused on my career. It's hard to find someone who understands the demands of this life." "I get that," he replied, a flicker of something deeper in his eyes. "It's challenging to connect when you're constantly on the move." They both fell silent for a moment, the weight of the conversation lingering in the air. It was a rare moment of vulnerability that connected them in a profound way. "Maybe you just need to find someone who sees beyond the spotlight," Keanu suggested softly. "Someone who appreciates you for who you are, not just what you do." Sandra looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. "You mean, like you?" she teased, trying to lighten the mood but feeling a warmth blossom between them. He chuckled, his eyes dancing with mischief. "Well, I can certainly appreciate you for who you are." The banter eased the tension, and Sandra felt a flutter of something unspoken hang in the air between them. There was a chemistry that she hadn't anticipated, a connection that felt both exciting and daunting. As they finished their coffees, Keanu leaned back, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "You know, I think this might be the best unexpected adventure I've had in a while." Sandra smiled, her heart feeling light. "Me too. I wasn't sure how my night would go after everything, but I'm glad it took this turn." The sun continued to rise higher, bathing the cafe in a warm glow. As they left the table, Sandra felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. This was more than just an encounter, it was the beginning of a friendship, or perhaps something deeper. As they walked out of the cafe, she felt a renewed sense of hope and possibility. Maybe life was unpredictable, but sometimes those unpredictable moments led to the most beautiful connections. After finishing their coffee, Sandra and Keanu decided to take a leisurely stroll through a nearby park, the morning sun casting a golden hue over the lush greenery. The air was fresh, and the world around them felt alive, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous night. As they walked side by side, the conversation ebbed and flowed like a gentle breeze. They shared stories about their childhoods, their families, and the dreams that had propelled them into the spotlight. Each revelation felt like a thread weaving them closer together. "I grew up in a small town in Virginia," Sandra said, a nostalgic smile lighting up her face. "I used to dream of becoming an actress, but I never imagined it would actually happen. I thought it was just a fantasy." Keanu nodded, his eyes reflecting understanding. "I get that. I was born in Beirut but moved to Toronto when I was young. Acting was always a way for me to escape reality, to be someone else for a while." "Escape can be a double-edged sword," Sandra replied thoughtfully. "Sometimes, you get so caught up in the roles you play that you forget who you really are." "Exactly," he said, his voice softening. "It's easy to lose yourself in the personas we create. That's why I value moments like this, when we can just be ourselves." They reached a small clearing in the park, where a few benches sat under the shade of towering trees. Keanu gestured toward a bench, and they settled in, the serenity of the park enveloping them. "Have you ever had a moment where you felt completely yourself?" Keanu asked, his gaze fixed on the leaves rustling overhead. Sandra took a deep breath, contemplating his question. "There was a time when I was filming The Proposal. I felt so connected to my character and my co-stars. It was like I found a piece of myself in that role. But then there are times when the pressure feels suffocating." "I can relate," Keanu said, a wistful look in his eyes. "I once had a role that felt so genuine, it brought out a part of me I didn't know existed. But then there are days when I question everything, the fame, the choices I've made." Sandra looked at him, sensing the vulnerability behind his words. "You've made an impact on so many people. It's hard to see that from the inside, though, isn't it?" He nodded, a shadow crossing his face. "Sometimes it feels like a performance, even when I'm just being me. I wonder if people would still care if I wasn't famous." The honesty in his voice struck a chord within her. "That's a tough realization. But I think the right people will see you for who you are, not just your roles. Those are the connections that matter." Keanu smiled, a hint of relief in his expression. "I hope so. It's easy to feel isolated, even surrounded by people." "Yeah, it is," Sandra agreed, feeling a sense of kinship growing between them. "But moments like this remind me that we're all just trying to navigate this crazy world together." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Sandra glanced up at the stars beginning to peek through the twilight. "You know, I always feel a sense of wonder when I look at the stars. It reminds me that there's so much more out there, beyond our struggles." Keanu followed her gaze, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "It's humbling, isn't it? To think about how small we are in the grand scheme of things yet still have the ability to connect with one another." "Yes," she replied softly. "Every moment matters, and every connection is a chance to make a difference." There was a moment of silence as they both absorbed the beauty of the night unfolding around them. The park was now illuminated by the soft glow of street lamps, creating a peaceful ambience that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. "Can I ask you something personal?" Keanu said, breaking the quiet. "Of course," Sandra replied, intrigued. "What do you want most in life right now?" he asked, his gaze searching her eyes. She hesitated, feeling the weight of his question. "I want to feel fulfilled, like I'm making a difference not just in my career but in my personal life too. I want to find someone who sees me for me, not just the actress." "I think that's a beautiful aspiration," he said, his voice low. "To find a balance between both worlds." "And what about you?" she asked, feeling a sense of courage to probe deeper. "What do you want?" Keanu took a moment, gathering his thoughts. "I want to continue growing as an actor and a person. I want to be present in my life, to find joy in the little things. And like you, I'd like to find someone special who can share that with me." His honesty touched her, and for a fleeting moment, the air between them crackled with unspoken possibilities. The chemistry they had felt earlier now simmered beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. As the stars twinkled overhead, Sandra realized that their connection had deepened into something significant. They had shared fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities, a beautiful tapestry of understanding and companionship. "Thank you for tonight," she said softly, her heart swelling with gratitude. "It's been unexpectedly wonderful." Keanu smiled, his eyes warm. "It's been a pleasure, Sandra. I didn't think a gas station would lead to such a meaningful night." "Neither did I," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm glad it did." As they sat under the stars, time seemed to stand still. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the night and the comfort of each other's presence, they both felt a sense of possibility. Maybe this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with unexpected adventures and the promise of deeper connections. The night air was thick with unspoken words and lingering glances as Sandra and Keanu sat together beneath the stars. The connection they had forged felt electric, yet both were acutely aware of the world around them and the roles they played within it. Just as the moment began to settle into something profound, Sandra's phone buzzed in her pocket, shattering the quiet intimacy. She pulled it out, her heart sinking as she glanced at the screen. It was her publicist, Laura. "Everything okay?" Keanu asked, noticing her sudden change in demeanor. "Yeah, just work stuff," she replied, forcing a smile. "But I should probably take this." She stepped a few paces away, trying to maintain a semblance of privacy. "Hey, Laura," she said, her voice steady but laced with unease. "Sandra, you need to be careful," Laura's voice crackled through the line. "The press is all over the incident at the gas station. They're speculating about your safety and who you were with." I know," Sandra replied, rubbing her temples in frustration. "But it was just a moment. I didn't think it would blow up like this." "It's not just a moment anymore," Laura insisted. "People want to know who you were with, and there are rumors about you and a certain actor. You might want to address this before it gets out of hand." Sandra glanced back at Keanu, who was now standing, hands tucked in his pockets, looking thoughtfully at the ground. Her heart raced as she felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. "Okay, I'll handle it," she said, her voice firm. "Thanks for the heads up." As she hung up, a sense of dread settled in. She walked back to Keanu, who looked up, concern etched on his face. "Everything all right?" "Not really," she admitted, feeling the heaviness in her chest. "I need to be careful with how I'm seen right now. The press is relentless, and they're linking me to you." Keanu's expression shifted, understanding dawning. "I get it. Being in the public eye comes with its own set of challenges. But you shouldn't feel pressured to explain anything. Your life is your own." "Right, but the more I try to keep it private, the more curious they get," she said, feeling vulnerable. "It's a vicious cycle." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "If they want to know about us, let them wonder. What matters is how we feel about this connection, not what anyone else thinks." Sandra felt a flicker of hope at his words, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on her. "It's just so complicated," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Just then, the distant sound of revving engines interrupted their moment, and a group of motorcycles roared into the park, the same bikers from the gas station. Sandra's stomach dropped as she recognized them, their presence sending a wave of tension through the air. "Hey! Look who it is," the lead biker shouted, dismounting with an air of bravado. "Thought we'd find you two lovebirds here." Keanu immediately moved in front of Sandra, a protective stance that sent a rush of gratitude through her. "You need to leave," he said, his voice low but firm. The bikers laughed, their demeanor menacing. "What's the matter? Afraid we'll ruin your little moment?" one of them taunted, stepping forward. Sandra felt her heart race as the situation escalated. "We're not looking for trouble," she said, trying to diffuse the tension. "Just leave us alone." The lead biker smirked, clearly enjoying the confrontation. "You think you can just walk away after what happened? You don't get to act like nothing's wrong." "Enough." Keanu's voice cut through the air, strong and unwavering. "This isn't the way to handle things. You need to step back." The bikers exchanged glances, their bravado wavering slightly, but the lead biker took another step closer, pushing the boundaries. "You think you can talk to us like that? You don't know who you're dealing with." "I know enough to see that this isn't who you are," Keanu replied, his tone steady but firm. "You have a choice, either you walk away, or this escalates." Sandra could feel the tension crackling around them, the situation spiraling out of control. "Please, just go," she urged, her heart racing. "We don't want any trouble." The lead biker scoffed, looking between her and Keanu, his expression conflicted. "You think you're a hero, don't you? But you're just a pretty face, and you don't scare us." Keanu stood tall, unyielding. "I'm not here to scare anyone. But I won't let you intimidate her. This isn't just about you anymore." The confrontation hung in the air, palpable and charged. For a brief moment, Sandra saw uncertainty flicker in the lead biker's eyes. "Let's get out of here," one of the younger bikers suggested, a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Yeah, we don't need this," another chimed in, clearly feeling the tension. The lead biker clenched his jaw, frustration evident, but after a tense moment, he stepped back, the defiance in his posture wavering. "You're lucky we're not in the mood tonight," he growled before turning on his heel and storming off, the other bikers reluctantly following. As the sound of their motorcycles faded into the distance, a heavy silence settled over the park. Sandra let out a breath she didn't know she was holding, relief washing over her. "Are you okay?" Keanu asked, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "Yeah, I think so," she replied, her heart still racing. "Thank you for standing up for me again." "Always," he said, his voice softening. "I won't let anyone intimidate you, Sandra. You deserve to feel safe." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, something shifted between them. The weight of the confrontation faded, replaced by a deepening connection, a realization that they were not just allies but something more significant. "I don't want you to feel like you have to protect me," she said, her voice steady yet vulnerable. "But I appreciate it more than I can express." Keanu stepped closer, the space between them filled with unspoken possibilities. "You don't have to explain yourself to me. I see you for who you are, and that's enough." As the stars began to twinkle above them, Sandra felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the unexpected bond they had formed. Life had thrown chaos their way, but through it all, they had discovered something beautiful together. "Let's get out of here," she suggested, her heart lighter now. "I'd like to find a place where we can talk without worrying about the world crashing in." "Sounds perfect," he agreed, a warm smile breaking across his face. Together, they walked away from the park, side by side, ready to embrace whatever came next. The night was still young, and with each step, they felt the promise of new beginnings unfolding before them. As Sandra and Keanu walked away from the park, the tension of the confrontation began to fade, replaced by a sense of anticipation. They wandered through the quiet streets of Los Angeles, the glow of streetlights casting a warm ambience around them. "Do you have a place in mind?" Keanu asked, glancing at her with curiosity. "I know a little diner nearby that's open late. It's a cozy spot, perfect for late-night conversations," Sandra suggested, her heart racing with excitement at the thought of spending more time with him. "Lead the way," he replied, a smile dancing on his lips. The diner was just a few blocks away, its neon sign flickering invitingly. As they stepped inside, the familiar scent of coffee and breakfast foods enveloped them, creating an inviting atmosphere. They chose a booth in the corner, the red vinyl seats cushy and worn, a testament to the countless stories shared within those walls. As they settled in, Sandra couldn't shake the feeling of ease that washed over her. "I've always loved this place," she said, looking around. "It feels like home." Keanu nodded, taking in the retro decor and the cozy vibe. "I get it. There's something comforting about diners. It's like you can always find a slice of normalcy in the chaos." "Exactly," she replied, her heart swelling with warmth. "And the pancakes are to die for." "Pancakes it is," he said with a playful grin, waving over the waitress to place their order. As they waited, Sandra felt a sense of camaraderie blooming between them. "So, what's next for you?" she asked, eager to know more about his life beyond acting. Keanu leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "I'm working on a few projects. I've been getting into producing, which is a new challenge for me. It's exciting to see stories come to life from behind the scenes." "That sounds incredible. I'd love to hear more about it," Sandra said, her interest piqued. "What kind of stories are you looking to tell?" "I want to focus on narratives that explore human connections, the struggles we all face," he replied, his passion evident. "Stories that remind us we're all in this together." She felt a rush of admiration for him. "I love that. It's so important to create art that resonates with people on a deeper level." Their food arrived, and they dug into the pancakes, laughter punctuating their conversation as they swapped stories and jokes. Time slipped away, and the diner buzzed with life around them, but they were in their own little world, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. After finishing their meal, Sandra leaned back, a satisfied smile on her face. "That was just what I needed." Keanu looked at her, his gaze intense yet gentle. "I'm glad we could share this. It's been a night I won't forget." The air between them felt charged with unspoken emotions, and Sandra's heart raced as she realized how much she valued this connection. "Keanu, she began, feeling a mix of vulnerability and excitement. "I didn't expect to meet someone like you tonight." He leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Neither did I. It feels like we've known each other longer than just a few hours." She nodded, her heart pounding. "There's something special about this moment, about us." Keanu's eyes searched hers, sincerity shining through. "I want to explore this, whatever this is. I don't want to rush anything, but I can't ignore what I feel." Sandra felt a warmth bloom within her, a sense of hope and possibility. "I feel it too," she admitted, her voice steady. "But we need to navigate this carefully, especially with everything going on." "Absolutely," he replied, his tone serious yet understanding. "We'll take it one step at a time. Whatever happens, I'm here for you." They shared a moment of silence, the weight of their words hanging in the air, before the waitress returned with the check. Sandra reached for her wallet, but Keanu gently placed his hand over hers. "Let me get this," he insisted, a warm smile gracing his lips. "Okay, but only if we promise to split the next one," she said, her heart fluttering at the thought of future moments together. "Deal," he agreed, his smile widening. As they left the diner, the night was still alive with possibilities. The stars twinkled above them, illuminating their path as they walked side by side, hands brushing against each other, each touch sending sparks of electricity through them. "Where to next?" Keanu asked, his eyes glimmering with excitement. "How about we find a spot with a view?" Sandra suggested. "There's a hill nearby that overlooks the city. It's breathtaking at night." "Lead the way," he replied, his enthusiasm contagious. They walked together, the city buzzing around them, but all Sandra could focus on was the warmth of Keanu's presence beside her. When they reached the hill, they found a quiet spot where they could sit and take in the panoramic view of the glittering Los Angeles skyline. "This is beautiful," Keanu said, his voice filled with awe as he took in the scenery. "It really is," Sandra agreed, her heart swelling. It's moments like this that remind me why I love this city. As they sat in comfortable silence, Sandra's mind drifted to the events of the day, the chaos, the confrontation, and now, this serene moment with someone who understood her in ways she hadn't anticipated. "Thank you for being here tonight," she said, her voice soft. "It means a lot to me." Keanu turned to her, his expression sincere. "Thank you for trusting me. It's rare to find someone who gets it." The air around them felt charged with possibility, and Sandra realized that despite the challenges they faced, this was the beginning of something beautiful. They were navigating a world filled with unpredictability, but together, they could forge their own path. As they shared stories and laughter under the stars, the promise of a new beginning blossomed between them, a testament to the resilience of human connection. No matter what lay ahead, they had each other, and that made all the difference. With the city lights twinkling like stars below, Sandra knew she was ready to embrace whatever came next. After all, life was an adventure, and with Keanu by her side, she felt ready to face it head-on.